Welcome back to I Am Ugie. I'm just going to jump right into it and picking up where I left off at. County had moved me and separated me from my foster family and my sister, and they had placed me in Cleveland Heights, no, University Heights, at an orphanage called Bellfaire JCB. It was a place for unwanted kids, teenagers, children with mental health problems. It's in University Heights, close to Beechwood, I want to say. Um, I was there for probably about maybe a week or two before I turned 11, or maybe it was like a week or two after I had turned 11. I can't remember off the top of my head, but while I was there, I made friends with a girl named Amy Faust. She's no longer living, but she used to try to braid my hair for me because I used to always wanted my hair braided, but my hair wasn't long enough. So she would like braid the top of it, and the sides wouldn't be braided at all. Uh, there were a lot of other teenagers there. I was the youngest child there. There was nobody in my age group who was there at the time. Everybody else were teenagers. I want to say ages 14 on up to all the way up to 17, 18. If they were 18, they were in the process of being processed out of the system or out of Bellfaire. I became close. Well, I would like to say, for the most part, everybody that was there were like my sister, or they treated me like their little brother. But I became close to a girl named Randy, and still to this day, I talk to her, and she's like my sister. I love her sarcasm. She's always been sarcastic since I've known her. But in Bellfaire, you, or at least for me, you bond with people, you become attached to them, and then for whatever reason, they're processed out, and then boom, they're gone. So for me, growing up, I dealt with a lot of getting close to people, and then they leave. So I guess that's where the abandonment issue comes in at. Later on in life, not during that time, but later on in life, I was diagnosed with PTSD, personality disorder, depression. The list goes on. I've been diagnosed so many different things throughout my life that even I question. I'm like, they don't even know themselves what's wrong. But during my time there at Bellfaire, I had a roommate, and his name was Mike, and he was or claimed to be a Crip from the west side of Cleveland during that time in the early '90s or mid '90s. That was, and for whatever reason, unprovoked, I did nothing to him, didn't say anything smart to him or anything like that. And then he just walked over to me with a crazed look in his eye, and he said, "I'm going to kill you." Just like that. And he wrapped his hands around my neck and he strangled me. And the whole time he was strangling me, I was thinking about how Smokey strangled me for crying over my mother. And then I remember blacking out. When I came to, he had wrapped me up in my blanket real tight. So at first I didn't want to move, and I just sat there and I listened, and I could tell that he was back on the other side of the room in his bed. So I jumped up, wiggled free, and jumped up out of my bed real quick and ran out and told the night staff that was there. At night, they would only have one staff member there, and then they would have like other staff that walked the campus. the campus grounds, but their job was to chase the patients or the kids that had gone AWOL. But I told him what happened, and all he did was write up a report and put me in a room with another guy named Brian. Brian was cool. He was like a skater kid. He was a white boy, and or a white kid, I should say, and he was like the skater type, big baggy jeans and smoked cigarettes. I spent the night in his room, and I slept with a number 2 pencil underneath my pillow, just in case I had to defend myself. So I was 11 years old at the time this had happened to me. A few days later, Mike, for whatever reason, got a can of pepper spray somehow, and he pepper sprayed the night staff member that was there that night. So they obviously came, got him, and they transported him to CBI. And at the time, I didn't know what CBI was, but I would find out, and I will explain to you what CBI later on in the video. As time went on, there was a girl there. I think she was about 15, and she was having a relationship with one of the male staff members there at Bellfaire, and the guy ended it, broke it off, and the girl killed herself. And Bellfaire kept that hush hush. Shh. But there was a lot of incidents where the male staff that worked there were trying to have relationships or get favors from the female patients that were there, or kids, teenagers that was there, that went on there. As time went on, I learned, or I picked up the habit of smoking cigarettes. I started smoking when I was 11 years old. Started smoking cigarettes when I was 11 years old. At Bellfaire, we used to go AWOL, and what you do is basically wait till the staff, there's one staff member there at night, or if it's an open cottage, at the time Cottage 13 was an open cottage, and we would just run out the door and take off running off campus. And we would steal Mad Dog 2020 from the corner store and drink it. You know, so at the age of 11, I was drinking MD 2020, smoking Newport cigarettes. And I started smoking weed at 11 too. And that was pretty much my introduction there at Bellfaire. I hated it there, being there. So as the frustration and stuff built up, I would, as a kid, fight and attack the staff members because I felt like I was restricted. And then they put me in a lock cottage. If I can remember correctly, I think it was Cottage 12. They put me in a locked cottage or whatnot, so that means the doors don't open. And the only way you get the doors open, which we figured out, well, if you pull the fire alarm, the doors unlock after 30 seconds. So we would pull the fire alarms and go AWOL. And we would do little silly stuff like put bananas in the tailpipes of the staff members' cars and stuff like that, voicing our anger and frustrations the best way we knew how, and that was through violence. So we would break out the windows of other buildings on campus, take the fire extinguishers and spray them in the rooms of the different buildings. We were basically bad kids, but we was voicing our frustrations, taking off running through the grounds and being chased by the night staff members who would come. And I remember we had this one, her name was Shelly, and she was known for running track when she was in school. And nobody could outrun her. Like once you heard her footsteps, that was it. It was like she was like a cheetah, chasing down the prey, and we were the prey. And she would hide in bushes and stuff and wait for us to come around, and she'd jump out and she got you. But they would tackle us to the ground, restrain us on the ground, and pick us up and carry us by our arms like this, arms out, and they would take us to CBI. Now, CBI, when you get there, they strip you down, they put you in a gown, and they throw you in this room that was like the shape of an octagon or a small octagon. They would give you a mattress that would just be on the floor, and the ceilings were probably like 12-foot ceilings, and the only windows they had in it was little glass block windows, which were all the way at the top. And all they did was let sunlight through. The door was a metal door that they would close, and it had latches, one at the top, one at the bottom, and it had a door or a window, plexiglass window, with a door that they would open up so they could peek inside and look at you. And that was CBI, so it was basically solitary confinement. You were away from all the other patients and all the other kids when you were in there until basically you were calm. So you could be in there a day, 2 days, 3 days, depending on what you did. So I became accustomed to going to CBI a lot because as I was there, the longer I was there, I would get frustrated and get mad, and I would fight the staff members back. And Bellfaire is when I really started fighting, but I wasn't fighting kids or other patients. I was fighting staff members. During that time, the medications they had me on, I think I was on Prozac first, and then they switched me over to Ritalin. Um, while I was there, staff members would come and go. I guess rotate in, rotate out. And one time I got this one staff member, her name was Michelle, and she was real cool. I developed a bond with her, and whenever I had a problem or I was upset about something, she was there to, she always calmed me down. She would do little stuff, do little extra stuff. Like she would take me out on fishing trips because she know I like to go fishing. She would take me to get Taco Bell. Um, but as time went on, like I developed a bond with her that she was at the time, I think she was in the army and she had to go for whatever reason, and I did not want her to go. Like it crushed me for her to go. Um, I didn't want her to walk out of my life. I felt I had found someone who, was able to, I guess, keep me sane or whatever while I was there. And she left, and I felt like she had, walked away from me, abandoned me, so I was lost. And I left. I went AWOL, and I climbed to the top of Staff Res, which is on Bellfaire, and it's like a 2, 3 story little mini apartment building for staff members to live in. And I stood on top, and they were chasing me, and I ran up the fire escape on a ladder, and I stood on the edge of the building, and I told them, I said, "Don't come up or I'm gonna jump." And I started dangling my feet off because I wanted to jump. But the only reason that I didn't jump was looking down at the cars below. I was like, this is not high enough. It's not high up enough. I felt like if I jumped, I probably would have just broke a leg or broke my back or something, and I would have been worse off in a worse situation physically. So, but I didn't. I didn't come down off of the building, and they did not come up. They were too terrified to come up. So they actually had called Michelle at her house, and she drove all the way from her house, because at the time she lives in Akron, and she drove from Akron all the way back to Bellfaire. And she went through the whole phase of talking me down, and she asked could she climb up, and she climbed up, and she sat near the edge where I was at, and she just talked to me and basically talked me down. So I climbed off the edge, and then climbed down off the building, and off the CBI I went. After being there at CBI, she had obviously left. Then a few days after that, I had a visit from Smokey, and Smokey came to visit me. And I asked Smokey, I said, "Hey, when are you going to get me out of here?" And she said, or he said, looked me in my eyes, and he said, "Boy, I don't want you." He said, "You better off here." And that crushed me as a kid, hearing that from my own father. But I wasn't going to let him see me cry. So instead, I asked him for a cigarette. And he said, "You don't smoke?" I said, "Yes, I do. Give me a cigarette." And my father pulled out his pack of Cool menthol cigarettes that he smoked, and he handed me one. And I sat there on the stairs of one of the buildings there and smoked a cigarette with my father. And shortly after smoking a cigarette with my father, he got up and got in his car and left. And I went back to Cottage 13, and I asked another kid if I could borrow his shaver. And he let me borrow it, and I shaved my head. And I shaved my head because I did not want to look like my father anymore. So here I am. I'm 43 years old, and still to this day, I shave my head bald. I have a picture of it because I was a kid, but I didn't know what I was doing, so I had like patches all on my head, but my hair was gone. I had to shave it off. So that was that day. So that had happened. And at that point in time in my life, I literally felt alone, and no one else mattered. Nothing else mattered in life. I was just always trying to, I guess, fill this void that was growing inside of me. So going AWOL and smoking weed and all of that was my life. while I was at Bellfaire, I would go to school there and I would sleep on top of the heaters. I would lay down on top of the heaters because back then it was the steam heaters. They still had like the steam heaters in the classrooms. So I would lay on top of the steam heaters and just go to sleep. I wouldn't do my schoolwork, wouldn't do anything because I no longer cared. Um, so one night I had uh I had got real down and I remember it was raining outside and I was in a gown, a hospital gown and some socks. And it was raining. It was pouring down raining. And I pulled the fire alarm and I went AWOL by myself. And I walked all the way from Bellfaire to Delford Road, University Heights, to Delford Road and Shaker Heights, and nothing but a pair of socks and a hospital gown in the cold rain, and it was pouring. While I was walking through University Heights, it was about 12 o'clock at night, maybe 12:30, and a police officer drives past. He sees me and he hits a U-turn, and I just take off running through the back of the houses and nothing but socks and a gown, and I'm hitting fences, and I hear this officer running trying to catch up to me. So I'm hitting fences. I climb over another fence. I see a pool, but the pool had the cover over top of it. So I knew it was water in there. So I ran around the pool and I hid up underneath a porch. And I see the light from the officer shining around. And I hear the officer jumping over the same fence I just jumped over. And he walks past the porch that I'm laying under in the mud. And he hops over the next fence. And I hear him looking around and talking on his radio. And I laid underneath that porch in the mud for I don't know how long. But I was underneath that porch for a little bit. And then I came out from underneath the porch, climbed back over the fence, and kept on walking down the street like everything was normal. Or looking out for car headlights just in case I ran into any more police officers. But I walked all the way down to Lee Road, and then I made a left on Lee Road, and I walked all the way down into Shaker Heights, and I walked all the way to Delford in the rain, hoping that my father would be home. And when I got to the house, I seen his car was in the driveway, but I didn't ring the doorbell at first. I didn't ring the doorbell at all, actually, but I had seen that the light was on in the kitchen, and the kitchen was in the back of the house, so I figured, well, let me look through the kitchen window first. So I walked to the back of the house, and I'm looking through the kitchen window, and I see my father, and he's in the kitchen, and he's with one of his ladies, and he got his girl all up on the counter, smooching on her and stuff, and where he was at, with her, he could see me, and he looked over and looked dead at me and seen me standing outside in the rain. Did he stop? And did he open the door? No, none of that. He wasn't even like, what are you doing here or nothing. He just left me out there standing in the rain and continued, kissing all on his girl and stuff. And I sat there crying in the rain, looking through the window. So at that point, I was just completely broken. by my father. So I walked back down the driveway and I walked down Delphi Road. I'm cold, my toes are cold, my fingers is cold, I'm soaking wet. And I walked back down Delphi Road. I walked down Lomond, walked back out the Lee Road, and walked back down Lee Road, and I passed the Shaker Heights Police Department, and I walked right up to the police department, and I told them, I said, I'm AWOL from Bellfaire, and they took me in, they handcuffed me to a bench, and one of the officers, it was like a female officer, she had brought me like some hot chocolate and stuff like that, and I had to sit there and wait for Bellfaire to come get me. And when the staff came to get me, they picked me up and carted me off the CBI. Off the CBI I went. At that time, or shortly afterwards, yeah, everything I did was just reckless. Sometimes I would get picked up from Bellfaire, or I would be taken from Bellfaire, and I was allowed to go back to when I was maintaining good behavior. I was allowed to go back and visit my foster family and my sister in Charm, Ohio, and then Bellfaire would pick me back up, like that Sunday or whatnot, and I would go back to Bellfaire. When I was down there in Charm, Ohio on my visits, I tried to be on good behavior or whatnot. But even then, my foster parents didn't know how far and how much I had changed being at Bellfaire during that time. Being at Bellfaire, I had to celebrate Jewish holidays like Passover and all that stuff, which at the time I couldn't stand it because I didn't like eating matzo ball soup and the big old crackers, and I used to put peanut butter on them to eat them, but I couldn't stand those holidays. But I did like Hanukkah because at Bellfaire they did celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas, so you got a gift for each day of Hanukkah, and then you had Christmas. So Bellfaire would buy the children, they would have you write down like your Christmas list of what you wanted, and they would buy the children Christmas gifts. So that part I did enjoy about being at Bellfaire. But as time went on, feeling like, a caged animal there at Bellfaire, I attempted suicide, and when I attempted suicide, I regretted it instantly because at the Bellfaire, I couldn't really find, like, there were no razor blades and stuff laying around. Your medication, they would grind it up and put it in juice, and you would have to drink the juice because they learned quickly to not give me pills, because I would put the pills in the cheek of my mouth and act like I took them, and I would just store them up in a baggie. Well, they found my baggie with a bunch of pills in it. So they started grinding my pills up and putting it in little small cups of juice, and I would have to drink the juice or whatnot. But so I couldn't really find nothing to kill myself with, or that would kill me. And being a kid, not knowing anything and not knowing any better, just wanting to die, they left the cleaning closet open one day, and I went inside the cleaning closet, was looking around for anything, and I found this big old bottle of heavy duty industrial cleaner. It was called Speedball, and it had the little skull, with the bones on it, crossed like this. So as a kid, I knew that that meant death. So I was like, in my mind, I said, okay, I drink this, life would be over with. So I drank it, and the moment it hit my mouth, it stripped the lining out of my mouth. I'm talking about like I could pull skin out of my mouth, like the little white pieces of skin that when your lip peels. It's like all that was in the inside. That was my mouth, and it was like I could pull it out. It was disgusting, and I screamed and I dropped the bottle of cleaner all on the ground. The staff came running out into the hall. I'm on the ground. I'm clenching myself, holding my stomach. So they rushed me to the hospital, and they ingested me with, I think it was charcoal or something, that black stuff they pump down your stomach. So I had to go through that. That was not fun. Um, but yeah, I went through that. That was an incident there that happened concerning me. Um, as time went on, I found other ways to self mutilate myself, um, with erasers, broken bottles, whatever I could find or get my hands on. I was using it. Um, Self mutilation for me would relieve the pain on the inside that I didn't know how to deal with. At the time, I didn't know how to deal with it. I just wanted it to go away. Um, Trying to think, there's a lot of stuff that happened at Bellfaire, but yeah. To sum it up, that was pretty much my life at Bellfaire for, I want to say, 3 years. Um, I lost my virginity there at the age of 11, and I lost it to she was like 16, 17-year old girl, which I've still been trying to find to this day because when I had left, she had told me, she said, I think I'm pregnant. And Bellfaire, once you leave, they don't allow you to have contact with the other patients there or the other students there or whatnot. So I don't know if she was pregnant or not. Um, but I was never able to find out. So in the back of my mind, I still wonder to this day. I'm like, I might have another child out there somewhere that I don't know that happened because of young age. Um, yeah. So I lived at being at Bellfaire when it came time for the foster parents to come through. They would have like different foster parents come through, and we literally felt like animals in a shelter or puppies in a shelter because they would bring the foster parents through, and the foster parents would sit in a room, and then they would call in different kids, and they would stare at you and ask you questions. So what do you like to do? Do you like to draw? What do you want to be when you grow up? Like, we're a bunch of kids with mental health problems. What are you talking about? And so whenever they would leave, we would all talk about the foster parents because, like, we're not animals, but that's how they treated us. Um, so it was like being in a puppy shelter, being puppies up for adoption. The While I was there, um, I used to hit staff members in the back with chairs. And Bellfaire had those wooden chairs. Like, these were some good, solid wood chairs. But if you were a staff member, and a lot of times staff members, they get smart with the kids. Like really smart. Even though we're kids and teenagers, it's like, um, we have issues, and some of them are antagonizing us. Some of them are trying to sexually abuse us, so we fought back. We fight them back. Um, Sometimes other stuff would trigger us, and they would tell us to calm down, and the patience rose up, and we would fight the staff members a lot. But I know I used to try to hit them in the back with the, or I would hit them in the back with the wooden chairs or whatnot, and I would get restrained and tackled and folded up like a pretzel and carted off to CBI. So that went on a lot there. Pulling the fire alarm, going to AWOL, went on a lot. No longer cared about the things in life because I felt I was broken in the inside. You know, I was a young age. I had already felt stupid and dumb. I didn't care about nothing. I became violent while I was there. But wanting to get out, as time went on, wanting to get out, I learned to manipulate the system because I figured out what they wanted. And you have to play the role like, oh, I'm doing okay. What's the biggest lie you ever told? I'm okay. That's a song by King ISO, and I said that is so true. But it's true. I'm okay. And my day is going fine. And I learned to hold in everything that was bothering me and try to contain it so I could get out of there. So one time while I was there, I was called into the room, and there was a lady and her son there to see me or talk to me or whatnot. And so I told him I like to draw. In reality, I don't know how to draw, but that's what I told him. At the time, I could draw I think it was like a 3D box or something that I had seen somebody else draw that had shown me how to draw. So I was like, oh yeah, I like to draw. And her son, he can draw real good, like really good. But that's what I told them because in my mind, I'm like, I'm trying to get out of here. I'm tired of being here. So, being on good behavior, but yet holding in all the pain and everything that was bothering me and all that stuff, I was able to go on weekend visits with them, and they lived in Bedford, and they were a black family. And when I got with them, I was just quiet, and I just observed everything that was going on around me during my weekend visits. And they're like, oh, do you like it? And I said, yeah, I like it, and this and that. I just wanted to get out of Bellfaire. But when I got back to Bellfaire, I would tell them, good stories or whatnot. And and as time went on, I eventually worked my way from weekend visits to I had got transferred to this new foster family. And lo and behold, it was the same woman who was at Juvenile. When I used to stand outside of Juvenile, when my brother would leave me and my cousin out there, and it was pretty interesting. We didn't know it at first that she was the same lady, and Yeah, but started off with weekend visits and then fully transitioning in. Um, I had fish that I had at Bellfaire. Um, I had earned those fish, and when I was at Bellfaire, those fish used to. They were like, they were my friends. That's all I had because I used to talk to the fish in the tank when I was there at Bellfaire. But during the transitioning over from Bellfaire to my foster home, my brother, my foster brother, uh, I guess didn't feed the fish because he didn't like having the fish in his room. Um, so I went over there or went back one time and all my fish were dead. But I was pissed about that. I was very pissed about that. And still to this day, I think he killed them on purpose, but whatever. But at the time, it bothered me. But I made it out of Bellfaire, so that's what mattered the most, I guess. So being at Bellfaire, or being at the new foster home, before I went to the new foster home, that's when Jennifer had told me, she was pregnant and this and that. So I get to the new foster home, and in the mornings I would have to catch the school bus to Bellfaire or to Heskett Middle School, and then the school bus would take me to Bellfaire, and then pick me up from Bellfaire, and then take me back to Bedford. But I rode the short bus. It was the bus for the handicapped, the special needs people. I'm talking about. They put the little helmet on their head, special needs. So I would always sit in the back of the bus because it had the bigger seat in the back, and I hated riding that bus. So I said, everybody sees me getting on and off of this thing. And in the morning, when I would go to Heskett, I wasn't allowed to go to the regular classes because they were transitioning me from Bellfaire into, I guess, society. Because being at Bellfaire, I was so institutionalized. It was like they were trying to ease me in. They were trying to ease me in into how the rest of the students and people were. So when I went to Heskett in the morning, it was only for 2 hours, and I was in the SBH classes, the classes they always kept in the back corner of the school next to the shop. And it was the severe behavior habits classes. Basically all the bad kids. And I used to go to that class for 2 hours in the morning. Still wouldn't do my work. Still wouldn't bring no homework home because in reality I didn't care. And in my mind, I'm like, I can't do this stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. So I would leave there after being there 2 hours and then go back to Bellfaire. And when I went back to Bellfaire, it was back to being around all the other dysfunctional children or teenagers there. Yeah, I was 13 years old at the time. Yeah, I was 13 when I got out of Bellfaire. And being out of Bellfaire and being in Bedford, what all did I do there? I was 13 years old, and my foster parents didn't know it at the time, but At 13 years old, actually, you know, I take that back. They might have known, and they just didn't say anything. Yeah, you know what? She did know. She just she would tell me, "I know what you're doing out there," and you know, my foster mom used to always try to guide me in the right direction, and she always had the, I would say, the best interest for me. But once again, I was just dysfunctional. But at 13 years old, I had my first gun. It was a little Taurus, little 25 millimeter. And in my mind, I said, these bullets are small. If I shoot somebody with this, it's just going to make them mad. So I got to give them all 7. But that was my mentality at 13 years old. I started selling crack at 13. Um, yeah, so I'll get into all that story, or I'll get it or go into that story on the next video. But I just wanted to talk about Bellfaire a little bit, and thank you for listening to my story, what I've been through in life. Like I said, I'm doing this to be completely transparent before I do what I have to do or supposed to be doing. So I like to be, or I want to be completely transparent, you know, no secrets, none of that. So that way people know that I can relate, and that basically when I talk from experience. Um, I know I did say no secrets, but some things I just can't speak on. I'll just leave it like that. Some things I just can't speak on. But I've seen a lot in life that most kids shouldn't see, teenagers shouldn't see and experience, but unfortunately they do. So I will talk about all that stuff later on down the line. Um, and I will talk about it from a spiritual point of view. Um, yeah, so bear with me and keep following along, and my story will continue to come out. But yeah, that was it. I just wanted to talk about Bellfaire a little bit, and it's a Bellfaire also has a cottage there. This is for the really extreme bad bad kids or kids with mental health problems. But the cottage it has a fence built up around the whole cottage. So even if you pull the fire alarm to go AWOL, you just basically running outdoors into the grass, into the lawn, and you can't get over the fence. Because I remember when I was there, I tried to see if I could climb over the fence because I had friends who were in that cottage, and we used to go and knock on each other's windows and get each other to come out, or pull the fire alarm so we could go AWOL in a group, and you know, go do stupid stuff, get drunk, uh, break into houses, you know, stupid stuff like that. I remember one time we went AWOL, and it was about 12, 13 of us, and we mobbed all the way through University Heights, all the way to my father's house. And I didn't care if my father was home or not. And I'm like, he gonna let us in. But he wasn't. So we broke in, and we basically ransacked his whole house. I mean, we some people went to sleep in the bed. People was taking off their gowns and putting on his clothes. We he had a BB gun, the little rifle BB gun, and we took that and was shooting out the windows in the garage at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like we was just dumb. And we in the house drinking, getting drunk, and just enjoying ourselves. But we had after we left, some of my friends had on like my father's. He had these nice trench coats and leather trench coats and stuff like that. And we walking down the street with his coats and stuff on, and next thing we know, the police bend the corner. And they turned on that little spotlight, and we scattered like roaches. We was out of there. And we ran all different directions, and it was cops coming from everywhere trying to catch us. And they lined us all up by it was I think it was called Heineken's. I can't remember correctly what was the name. It was a grocery store. But they lined us up at the grocery store on Lee Road in Van Aken. And we're all sitting there, and they got the dog barking in our faces and stuff. And my friend, Tony, his name was Tony, he got up, and I was like, everybody was like, don't run because the dog's going to get you. But it was too many of us, and at the time, it was only like they had 3 officers watching us. And the rest of the officers were like chasing the other kids, or the other teenagers. And my friend Tony just said, man, I'm out of here. He got up and took off running. So I took off running behind him. And thinking the dog was going to come after him, the officer did not let the dog go, but he gave chase. And I slipped we ran through a graveyard, and I slipped on a gravestone that was wet. And when I slipped, I fell on my back, but I slid across the grass, and I bounced up and kept going. And the officer slipped on the same gravestone. He fell, and I started laughing at him as I was running. It was funny looking back. So we run down into the rapid tracks on Van Aken, and we're running up the tracks. And there's a rapid coming. Well, rapid is like basically like the train, but it's 2 tracks. So we're running up the tracks. A rapid is coming down this way. We're running up this way. But there's a giant wall on both sides of us. So we're just trying to make it to the last part of the next intersection so that we could run out on the street. Well, by the time we got up to that part of the intersection, there was 2 canine dogs, 2 canine officers there, and they had their guns and stuff telling us to get on the ground. I was like, okay, you're going to point guns at kids who really don't care about living and tell us to get on the ground. So we just kept running, and they tackled us or whatnot, and took us to the Shaker Heights police station and handcuffed us to the bench. But because we were all being loud and unruly and making fun of the officers, they separated us and put us in different rooms as much as they could. But the police station is real small, so they got us separated in rooms, and we still banging on stuff and just creating a ruckus. To us, it was fun at the time. It was entertainment. It was an escape from what we were dealing with mentally. But yeah, it was lots. I have a lot of different stories like that, but it don't really matter at the end of the day now. But that's just experiences that I went through. So stay tuned, and I'll talk about Bellfaire here in probably a day or two. Thank you for tuning in to I Am Ugie.